The maitre d' barely spared me a glance before offering a polite shake of his head. I'm sorry, ma'am, but there's no reservation under your name. I blinked, momentarily thrown off. That's impossible. I was invited to dinner with my wife's family, they should already be here. His smile remained professional but firm. I've checked. There's a reservation for 6 under Madison Stone, but I'm afraid, a sharp, familiar voice sliced through the conversation like a knife. Oh, Elise. Madison Stone. My mother-in-law, the queen of subtle cruelty. She smiled, wide and dripping with amusement. Did you really think I'd include you in tonight's dinner? Behind her, seated at a semi-private table, was Ava, my wife, looking uncomfortable. Blair and Sienna, her sisters, whispered behind their menus, already mid-smirked at Madison's eyes gleamed. This is a family dinner. A place like this is a little out of your league, don't you think? The bile rose in my throat. But I didn't let it show. I straightened my shoulders. I was under the impression that being married to Ava made me family. Madison's eyes glittered. Oh, don't be dramatic, Elise. You've always known your place. That did it. I turned to the maitre d'. Would you be so kind as to ask the owner to come out? Madison laughed behind me. Oh please, do. I'm curious to see what kind of favor you think you can call in. Before he could answer, a smooth voice cut through the tension. Elise? Daniel Vaughn. The owner of Latelier Vaughn. My mentor. A man with far more class than the woman currently smirking behind me. He walked over and greeted me like an old friend. What brings you here tonight? I was supposed to be having dinner with my in-laws. Apparently, they didn't think I'd make the cut. Daniel's gaze sharpened. That won't do. He turned to Madison. You're right, this restaurant doesn't accept walk-ins. But Elise isn't a walk-in. She's family. Madison's smirk froze. I trained her, Daniel continued. Head of service by her 2nd year. She practically ran our Napa location. The table went silent. Even Blair's wineglass paused midair. Would you mind preparing a seat for Ms. Langley? He asked the maitre d'. Ava watched the scene unfold, eyes wide and lips parted. But still, she said nothing. One seat was cleared. Right next to Ava and I took it. Looks like there's room after all, I said, cool and composed. The food arrived, plated with elegant precision. This looks incredible, I murmured, slicing into the entree. Daniel had made a point of announcing to the chef that the meal was for me, and that it was on the house. Madison was fuming. Well, I suppose it's no surprise that someone like you would know people in hospitality. I looked up. Hospitality? You know. Kitchens. Service. Not exactly what we're accustomed to in this family. I set down my fork. Because I worked my way up, I must be beneath you? She shrugged. It must have been an adjustment for you. Marrying into a family like ours. That did it. Again, but this time, the sting didn't come from Madison. It came from Ava, still silent. Still complicit. I leaned forward slightly. Do you know the difference between us, Madison? She raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. I worked for everything I have. Gasps from the table. Blair glanced at Sienna. Ava looked like she wanted to disappear. Madison chuckled. And yet it's my daughter paying for your lifestyle. I turned to Ava. Is that what you've been telling them? No answer. Madison leaned in. She told me your little business barely breaks even. That she's carrying you. So I pulled out my phone, opened a photo, turned the screen to the table. A picture of me standing in front of Aurora Collective. My company, we rebranded 2 years ago. I sold the original firm for 7 figures. Now we manage luxury brand launches, including this one. Daniel chimed in smoothly. Elise is the reason Latelier broke records in Milan last year. Dead. Silence. I stood up, letting the weight of the truth hang in the air. I won't be staying for dessert, I said, folding my napkin neatly. But thank you, Madison, for reminding me of everything I've outgrown. I turned to Ava, hoping, just once, for her to defend me, but she looked away. That was my real answer to so I walked out, head high, shoulders back, completely, gloriously out of their league. The moment I stepped outside the restaurant, the crisp night air bit into my skin, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. The quiet hum of traffic grounded me more than the hollow clinking of Madison's silverware ever could. My phone buzzed. Ava. I stared at her name for a long moment. Then I let it ring. I wasn't ready, not until she decided who she really stood with. A second buzz. This time a message. I didn't know what to say. Can we talk? I locked my phone. The woman I married disappeared somewhere between Madison's approval and Ava's silence. 3 days later, I was in my studio. My real home. Light streamed in through wide windows, casting long shadows over mock-ups and mood boards. Sasha, my project manager, leaned in the doorway holding 2 lattes. Word is Madison Stone tried to book a table at Aurora for her charity gala. I looked up, smirking. Let me guess, denied? Sasha grinned. Politely. With a waitlist of 6 months. I tapped the edge of the desk. Push it to 9. She laughed. Already done. For the first time in days, I exhaled. Not from spite, but from relief. I was back where I belonged. Creating. Building. Leading. Later that night, Ava showed up uninvited, yes, but not unannounced. Her knock was hesitant. Her face, tired. I messed up, she said, standing in the doorway of my studio, arms wrapped around herself. I noticed. She stepped in carefully, I scanning the space like it was new to her. Maybe it was. Maybe she never really understood what I did. I let her control how I reacted. I let her decide how I saw you. That was wrong. I stayed silent. I don't know how to fix it. I met her eyes. I do. But it won't be easy. Or quick. She nodded slowly. I'm willing to try. We sat across from each other on the studio couch, no fancy dinners, no family audience. Just 2 people with history and a question mark between them. I need honesty, I said. Not performance. Not loyalty to people who see me as less. Ava looked down. I thought keeping peace with them meant protecting us. I see now. That it just protected them. That dinner wasn't the first time, I said quietly. You've stood by while they belittled me before. And I let it slide. Not anymore, she whispered. I nodded. Then this time, we rewrite the rules. 2 weeks later, I walked into a luxury panel event, women founders in design, real estate, and branding. I was the closing speaker. Madison was in the audience. Of course she was. She never missed a moment to attach herself to relevance. I didn't flinch. I didn't acknowledge her. I just stood at the podium, lifted my chin, and started with, when you stop seeking seats at other people's tables, you learn to build your own. The applause came before I finished, but her silence, that was the real standing ovation. I moved into a sunlit loft downtown. High ceilings, quiet corners, and no ghosts. Every piece of furniture was chosen by me. No compromises. No pretending. Ava visited once, standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed inside. This is beautiful, she whispered. It's mine, I said simply. All of it. She looked at the exposed beams and curated art with quiet awe, then back at me. You're thriving. I nodded. I am. Finally. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded too. For the first time in a long time, we understood each other in silence, but that didn't mean we were fixed. My face was in Architect Digest next to a headline I didn't write, the visionary behind the velvet walls, Elise. Hart reimagines legacy. I laughed when I saw it. Dramatic? Sure. But honest? Absolutely. Clients called. Investors emailed. And my inbox pinged with invitations, panels, features, consultations. The same industry that once ignored me now wanted me to lead. You were always the power in the room, Sasha said. Now they're finally catching up. At night, I sat on my own balcony with a glass of red and no need to explain myself. Madison never called. Ava texted, but less, and I didn't chase either of them. One Friday night, I found a box of photos from the early days, before Ava's family got involved, before I toned myself down to fit her world. There was a shot of me at 25, standing in front of the first studio I ever leased. Paint on my jeans. Fire in my eyes. I didn't recognize the version I'd become at that dinner table, but I knew her, the one in the photo. I pinned it to my corkboard, right above a print that read, "You are not hard to love. You are just hard to control." Chapter 15, The Return. It was at a gallery opening where I saw him again, Noah Reyes. We'd worked together years ago on a joint project that never quite made it off the ground. I remembered late nights and quiet coffees. I remembered how he listened, really listened. He spotted me across the room. "No hesitation, no awkward pause." "Elise Hart," he said with a smile. "Still outbuilding the entire city?" I laughed. "Only the parts worth saving." We spent the evening talking. No performance. No posturing, just two people who remembered who they were, before anyone told them to shrink. The loft was quiet, but my mind wasn't. The night air drifted in from the open window, carrying the city's pulse beneath it, and I sat on the worn leather couch staring at my phone. No message from Ava. No call from Madison. I realized something. I wasn't waiting for them anymore. Freedom wasn't just about leaving them behind. It was about reclaiming the parts of me I'd buried, the fire, the ambition, the hunger to be seen on my own terms. To be loved not as an accessory or a project, but as a whole, untamed person. My phone lit up. A message from Noah. "A dinner tomorrow? I know a place where the wine is as good as the conversation." I smiled, typing back. "It's a date." The next night, Noah's place was warm, filled with soft jazz and the scent of cedarwood. He was waiting at the door, casual in a way that made me feel like the only woman in the room, and not because he was trying to impress me, but because he genuinely wanted to be there. We talked for hours, the conversation flowing easily from architecture to art to dreams long shelved. I told him about the dinner, about Morgan's cruelty, about the tightrope I'd walked between love and self-respect. He listened without judgment, offering quiet understanding instead of advice. "You've always been stronger than they gave you credit for," he said softly, and for the first time, I believed him. Weeks later, Ava called. Her voice was tentative, unsure. "Elise, can we talk?" I paused. After everything, after the cold shoulders and silent dinners, after watching her stand by as her mother humiliated me, did I want to? But I wasn't the same woman who had walked out that night. I was someone who demanded respect. Who refused to be invisible. "Fine," I said. "But on my terms." We met at a quiet cafe, away from the city's prying eyes. She looked tired. Like the weight of expectations had finally caught up with her. "I was wrong," she admitted. "About a lot of things. About us." I studied her carefully. Was this apology or manipulation? "You don't get to rewrite the past, Ava. But you can decide what comes next." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "I want to try. For us." I wanted to believe her. But this time, I would guard my heart fiercely, because I was no longer the woman who accepted crumbs. I deserved the whole table. A morning light spilled into the loft, catching the dust motes that danced in lazy arcs. I stood by the window, cradling a cup of coffee, watching the city wake beneath a steel-gray sky. It felt like a new day, not just because the calendar said so, but because I was shifting beneath my own skin. Since that night with Noah, my confidence had taken root. I was no longer clinging to fragile hope or silent endurance. I had a vision, my vision. A small but fierce restaurant concept, something honest and beautiful that reflected me. Not some sanitized, polished version designed to impress. I sat down at my laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. Business plans, menus, marketing strategies, this was no longer a fantasy. This was a promise to myself. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "We need to talk. Now." A cold knot formed in my stomach. I'd hoped to leave that drama behind. But some fires weren't so easy to douse. Later that evening, I met Madison at a neutral cafe. Her eyes were sharp, her posture rigid. No more sisterly smiles, just a woman fighting to keep control. Elise, I know you think you've won, she said coolly, but you're playing a dangerous game. Morgan's influence is deeper than you realize. I met her gaze steadily. Then let her try. I'm done shrinking. Madison's lips twitched in a half-smile. You think you're ready for that kind of war? I'm ready for whatever comes, I replied. There was a silence charged with unspoken history and broken promises. Madison finally leaned forward, voice dropping, then welcome to the battlefield, sister. The following days were a whirlwind. Plans accelerated, alliances shifted. Noah introduced me to some of his contacts in the food and beverage industry, chefs, suppliers, designers, all impressed by my vision. Morgan's shadow loomed at every turn. Invitations were rescinded, cold shoulders thrown by old friends. Whispers that stung sharper than any knife. But I refused to back down. One evening, Noah and I attended a charity gala. It was a glittering affair filled with polished smiles and hidden agendas. Morgan was there, as expected, draped in diamonds and disdain. She approached, her voice silk over steel. Still chasing dreams, Elise? I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve. I'm building a legacy. You should try it sometime. The night buzzed with tension, but for once, I wasn't shrinking. I was standing tall, unapologetically me. As I looked across the room, I caught Ava's eye. There was a flicker of something, hope. Regret? Or maybe a warning. Either way, the game had changed. And I was ready. The grand hall buzzed with the kind of polite chatter and clinking glasses that felt miles away from the rawness bubbling beneath the surface. I moved through the crowd with practiced grace, though every step felt heavier. Morgan's presence was like a cold shadow at my back, a constant reminder that her war was far from over. Adam was beside her, stiff and silent, his eyes flickering nervously. He wanted to say something, I could see it, but the words never came. Charlotte and Emma flitted around their mother like attendants in a court, their laughter sharp and rehearsed. I reminded myself why I was here, not just to survive, but to stake my claim. Noah was nearby, his steady gaze offering a silent promise. That I wasn't alone. At A.S. Morgan's laughter rang out, too bright, too cruel. I caught Ava's eye again. There was a flicker of sympathy in her gaze, but also hesitation. The old wounds between us ran deep, but maybe tonight held the chance for something different. Before I could decide, Morgan stepped forward, her smile venomous. Elise, darling, how charming of you to grace us with your presence. I met her. Smile evenly, my voice calm but cold. I'm here to celebrate family. Something I hope you might learn to appreciate. The room seemed to hold its breath. And for once, I was the one holding the power. Weeks later, my little restaurant was finally ready to open. The months of sleepless nights, planning, and fighting had brought me here, a space filled with warm light, soft music, and the rich smells of food made with love. The first guests arrived, friends, new allies, and even a few unexpected faces from my past. Noah stood beside me, pride and excitement shining in his eyes. Morgan didn't come, and neither did Adam. I'd expected their absence, but it still stung. It wasn't just a snub, it was a statement, but as I watched my dream come alive, surrounded by those who believed in me, I realized something important. This was my family now, not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. Later, as the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Noah took my hand. You did it, Elise. I smiled, exhaustion and triumph mingling in my chest. No. We did it. Because this was only the beginning, and whatever came next, I knew I'd never be invisible again.